Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Elemental Evan Show. Today is a very special episode because we are coming to you from Pasadena, California, but not just anywhere in Pasadena. We are coming from the Space Bar with a very special friend of mine, Jacob Saldana. Welcome to the show, Jacob.
Man, thanks for having me. It's always fun to be on this side of the mic, man. Letting you take the reins, asking me questions.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
And the reason he's saying that, you guys, is because he also is the host of a podcast, which obviously will be put in the show notes. But if you want to just drop a little shameless plug right now, Jacob, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, the Barcode Collective podcast, where we try to have conversations with multidimensional people in my past and looking for role models. Like, I've often found that people double down in one area. Maybe it's finances, and then they're not treating their lady in the best way, right? So, yeah, multidimensional people having conversations and, just showing some strength and vulnerability and all of that. But, yeah, that's the Barcode Collective podcast.
Cool. No, I love that. I think, that's all about, like, what the Elemental Evan Show is as well. It's like looking at things from a holistic perspective, whereas, like, you got to take into account, like, all the elements, everything that makes up health. It's not just, one-sided or one thing. It's a collective. So yeah, for
absolutely.
Sure. Just to kind of help people get to know you a little bit better, I first off just want to mention that the way you and I came together was through a mutual friend, Caleb Wood. And many of you have heard him on the show before, but just Jacob's big heart, I want to say, is really kind of what helped us connect. And just the fact that, he's got this amazing space here with so many different forms of recovery at, in my opinion, a super affordable price. And, just like the fact that you really opened up and there was no barrier to, like, creating a friendship with you and sharing this space with us has just been amazing, dude. I really appreciate that.
Well, no, I mean, I appreciate it. And also because, through your journey and your process, you've learned to value what we offer, so the more I can surround myself with people like that, it's a constant reminder that we're on the right path. Because ultimately, we need to create some awareness around this stuff for others that maybe don't know that this is what they're missing. So, just being around you and listening to your podcast and seeing your content that you're putting out on Instagram just reaffirms to me that we are doing what we need to be doing over here.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I love it, dude. And we're definitely going to get into the importance of recovery here on this episode. But just real quickly, so the viewers can get a better idea of you. So where were you born and where are you living currently?
Yeah, born and raised in West Seattle, Washington. So, I make sure to emphasize West Seattle. We take strong pride in that side of town.
Okay.
So, from West Seattle, living here now in Los Angeles area in the Echo Park neighborhood. Been down here for about, 10 years. Yeah, about 10 years. And kind of bounced all around LA, man, trying to find home. You're coming from the Northwest, moving to Southern California. You're chasing the beach cities. You're thinking that's what it's all about. And, it wasn't until the past couple of years that I found Echo Park and definitely feels a lot more like the neighborhood that I grew up in. So feel a little bit more at home there. And yeah, definitely happy to be there.
Cool. No, that's awesome. We're happy to have you out here, obviously. Okay. And then I want to ask you, what is right now a favorite book of yours or a book that you're currently reading?
All right. Book that I'm currently reading is called Designing the Mind. Can't think of the author right now.
Okay.
But it's amazing. It's, it's a lot of what I embrace is this idea of, a growth mindset, neuroplasticity, and this idea that we can change ourselves. So I really enjoy reaffirming that and finding more ways to do that.
Yeah.
More initially tricks or tactics, but more mental models to to put in my toolkit to try to rewire some of the conditioning and some of the behavior and habits that I would like to change.
Yeah.
So the book's all about it. It's looking at it from more of like an algorithm. We have this input from the environment or external stressor or whatever it might be, which result in an output of an action. So like trying to hack that or trying to rewire and recreate new algorithms to respond in a way that ultimately you want to.
I love that. Yeah, I think rewiring the brain is so important, and creating the self and version of yourself that you want every day is something we should all be doing. So probably dive into that more. And then lastly, what's a favorite quote of yours?
One that resonates with me and something that I really try to drive home with people here as well. The space bar is the Viktor Frankl quote of, I'll probably butcher it a little bit, but generally, that we can't really control what happens to us, but we can control our response to it.
Yep.
And with the space bar, it's all about creating space to breathe, adapt, and recover. And within that space, if you can find the breath and you can create that moment to respond versus react, is really everything.
It is.
Yeah. So yeah. I really appreciate that quote and try to live by that as often as I can. And sometimes I fall short, say things and do things that I wish I had taken a breath before.
We've all been there. I'm sure everyone on the show can already relate to you on that level for sure. I know I can at least. By the way, y'all, if you do hear some background noise, we are here live at the Space Bar, so bear with us, but we got some good stuff coming.
If you're hearing that right now, it's probably a delicious smoothie or acai bowl that's getting blended up right now.
Yeah, so get your mouth watering right now. And then just on the note of the Space Bar, so like lead me to what led to the Space Bar being created? Like, why did you feel that there was, and I mean, I personally know why, because I won't get into it. I'm gonna let you explain, but why do you feel that the Space Bar is of such importance, especially in today's world and maybe even geographically in this area or whatever, but just what was the intention behind it and why do you feel that this is so important?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a couple ways to answer that. I mean, for one, I personally started receiving a lot of benefits from the certain things that we offer here at the Space Bar. So as more of like a lifestyle entrepreneur, I believe that it's my duty that when I find things that are working for myself to bring it to others and to like kind of shout it from the mountaintops,
Yep.
But also I think, a bigger reason also is that the narrative that we've been fed for so long in the Western world and, in the US, in this like capitalistic society, that, our value is placed on our output, how much work we can do, right? And more and more and more. And even just on a smaller level within the fitness space, that is also the case. It's always about how many days can we train, getting that additional rep in, and it's always more. It's always output. And, after being in the health and wellness space for over 10 years now and kind of being not only on my own journey, but, working with, thousands of clients and thousands of members at our gyms, it's just not the right messaging, really focusing on recovery, proactive recovery, and learning how to dial that up a little bit is going to really get people the results that they want. So even if your end goal, which always is some level of results, showing that there's a different pathway to get there, and oftentimes, in my opinion, a better pathway.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like if we can embrace this idea of recovery and that whether your goal is fat loss or building muscle, and I think many people know now that progress is made in between the workouts when you're sleeping, when you're recovering. It just makes sense to me to emphasize that recovery and building then the stressors around that to induce change, to induce growth. Doing it in a way that seems like you're not just being a lazy, good for nothing bum, right?
Yeah.
So like it's that idea of also it's like, oh, an off day. An off day isn't just sitting on the couch.
No.
Not if you're this hungry, ambitious person, right?
Yeah.
No, this off day means proactive recovery. It means maybe doing contrast therapy, ice bath, sauna. Maybe it means doing Normatec compression or red light therapy. You can do this in a way, and you can frame it in a way that's going to resonate with that Western world of getting after it. So yeah, trying to just change the conversation around that. And letting people know that how important this is.
Yeah.
You don't need to be training 7 days a week in order to get the results.
Yeah.
You can get those in a smarter way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's so funny too how, a lot of times when it's like, oh, I'm going to recover, I'm going to go sit in a sauna. I'm going to do some red light therapy, all these different things. And the idea of like taking time for yourself as being like selfish and lazy is so ridiculous, and I think you're absolutely right. The recovery is just as important as the workout. And that's one of those things where once I really started learning the importance of sleep, it was like, dude, if you're working out and you're sleeping terribly, like you actually need to lower your workout load and you need to improve your sleep, because during that portion of sleep, that's when all those muscle fibers are becoming repaired. So like realistically, you leave the gym in worse shape than when you entered, but it's when you go to bed that night that all of the like benefits from that gym really take place,
Yeah. And even like, this is just like, even with that, it's just like assuming that working out is the only stressor.
Right.
We're these multidimensional beings and we're out here trying to get after it.
That's true.
It's a stressor, trying to create a business and, trying to crush it and trying to be financially, free, right?
Yeah.
Like that is a stressor.
Yes.
So even just bringing some understanding to how this whole works and like the nervous system and what that actually means, then you might not even like working out at all within the week might not be ideal.
Right. Right.
Sure, we need movement. We need to get blood flowing. But if you have a really stressful job or you're in this 2-week period of where you have a really stressful time at work and shit, maybe you got a newborn baby at home.
Right.
Part of this narrative has been, oh, you go work out to de-stress. That's not at all how it works.
Right.
Working out, that is a stressor.
Yeah.
Dieting is a stressor. Work is a stressor. All of these things are stressors.
Yeah.
Even the services that we have here are low-key stressors.
Yes.
Sauna is stressor. Ice bath stressor. Some of those things are stressors. So trying to understand the nervous system and what these stressors are, and then putting together a plan around that. And that was very integral in a lot of my own process. And I remember when we were like building even this location out, that inner voice for me, that coach that's in my head isn't the nicest person. What I'm typically motivated by is, me talking shit to myself, me calling myself soft or that I can do more, know? So, for me, I was just like, man, like, how do I measure that I'm not being a pussy right now? So that's when I like kind of found Whoop and was able to use some of those biometrics as that. Like I remember the thought process with that because I was here, doing some physical labor with, having some help in building this out, but also just the mental anguish of like trying to figure this all out, like was very draining. And at the end of these long days, I was like, oh, okay, you have to go to the gym now, and if you're not, you're being soft.
Right.
Because I didn't have a metric to really measure recovery from the standpoint of like what my nervous system was looking like.
Right.
So I knew that I was under recovered, I just wasn't recovering.
Right,
so
right.
The Whoop and the metrics through Whoop, like the HRV and whatnot, I got that as a means for me to show myself like, hey, your level of strain, your level of output, even if it was just mental output, is through the roof right now. So you need to not do that workout. It's okay. It's actually more than okay to not do that workout.
Right.
So finding like those right metrics in order to proactively change that voice in my head,
So real quick, for those of you who don't know, Whoop is it's a band that you wear and it kind of just tracks your workouts, your sleeps, your recovery. It's kind of like the Aura Ring a little bit, right?
Yeah, little more emphasis on the recovery side of it. So measuring your sleep, measuring your HRV. You can, it measures your strain or your output. But again, not based off of, okay, I'm going to turn this on now because I'm doing a workout. I'm going to see how much output I did. It's just constantly running in the background to see any differences like within your HRV, your breath rate, which is a big one. And it uses, an algorithm to come up with a recovery score on a daily basis. And, still, you don't want to rely on these things as solely like your motivator to either do work or not work. You still want to be involved, tapped into kind of how you're feeling. But again, for someone who is a hard driver, you might have moved away from being tapped into how you feel.
Yeah.
You're not really, it doesn't matter how you feel. Suck it up and go do the work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. For sure.
You lose that sense of being tapped in.
Yeah. Which definitely, is one thing that I think is also a little bit of a fine line too, in terms of like, I'm always like, when you're being lazy, but sometimes you're like, oh, you know what? No, I need to take a little break, a little rest. And like, that is critical. Like you do need to do that. But then there's times where I'm just like, I'll think of like David Goggins, and it's like, okay, there's a difference between like knowing when your body truly does need that rest. And then also like the laziness part of it and being like, okay, now I just need to get after it. Like this is a time to attack and go and to not be soft, but yeah, finding that balance is good. And I think the Whoop is super good for that, but also doing a check-in like mentally and sitting with yourself, checking in with your body, seeing if are you sore? Are you stressed? Are you holding a lot of tension in a certain area, and really relax. And so I actually wanted to ask like, what would be, in your opinion, like the best form of de-stressing kind of for, let's just say like, you're super stressed out after a long day. What would be your protocol to really like calm the central nervous system and get into that parasympathetic nervous state,
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like trying to eliminate the excuse. A lot of times we think that it has to be some external thing that we need to gravitate to. Like we need to go to the sauna, or we need to go somewhere that is calming. We need to go and maybe watch the sunset.
Right.
But the reality of it is the most accessible thing that you have, and really one of the only things that we have to hack into this nervous system is the breath.
Love it.
So
Love it.
Really just using the breath to downregulate, and finding some flexibility within your own nervous system and learning how to be in more control of that. Granted, it's a deeply rooted part of us that is built in a way that's going to protect us.
Yes.
But, there is a top-down opportunity for you to kind of hack into that with the breath. So very simple. And again, it's like, my knowledge of the breath runs really deep, and I'm very mindful of like not trying to come across as any kind of guru, because the information is simple facts. I don't even take really any kind of woo-woo or esoteric kind of approach to this. I just give you very simple facts, and I'll give you it all.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like literally all you need to do is slow your breath down. That's it. More specifically, the exhale. Focus on dragging out the exhale, and it does not take long to downregulate. No. 3 to 5 breaths, honestly, is kind of enough to slow things down a little bit. But that's really it. That's what I really want people to know, that it is the breath. And I also know that by me giving you this information, or you going out and seeking this information and you knowing this to be true, isn't enough for you to do it. Right. So you still need some coaching and accountability behind it, and finding a breath practice that you can stick to is really important. But it's always going to be the breath. And with that being said, there's times when you need to be stimulated, using the breath to stimulate yourself and getting activated as well.
Yes.
And as simple as speeding the breath up, that's really it. I think, I want people just to maybe bring some awareness to how they're feeling throughout the day. And you'll see this at play. The breath is part of the autonomic nervous system. So your body is going to default in certain ways based off of the external environment. So if you can be mindful enough for when you're getting worked up, someone cuts you off in traffic. Look at where the breath goes. You'll notice your breath is shallow. You're breathing faster. It's up in the chest. That is the default for an external stressor. So if you're looking to activate your system consciously, you basically just mimic that breath. Shorter breaths could be into the chest. There's other ways to do it, but just like that idea, like, okay, mimic that autonomic response consciously, and now you're going to induce those same feelings of being activated, increased cortisol, increased blood glucose.
Right.
Same idea. If you're super calm, you're at home, you're laying with your partner, and you got your dog fucking. There's that first F word. How long did I take? 21 minutes, baby. Yeah.
You got it, man. Hey, as many as you need, drop.
We'll clean that up. We'll clean that up.
No, it's good.
But you have, your dog laying on your lap. If you can consciously be aware, like, oh, how am I breathing? You're probably breathing nice, deep into your belly, slow, dragging out that exhale. Maybe you even do a little audible sigh,
Yeah.
And again, now that's how you mimic consciously in order to downregulate yourself. Like, it's all there. It's always been there.
Yep.
But also, with that being said, a little work might need to go into it, because if we've been going through life for 30 years, just letting the body kind of take over and breathe, we're in a very stressful world, very stressful environment. So the default then now is going to be the body's going to be constantly breathing in this stressful pattern, which is going to become the new default, because our default environment is stress. So we need to be a little bit more proactive in engaging the breath.
Yes.
And consciously slowing that down. So breath work isn't always, at least for me, this idea of just sitting for 5 minutes on a pillow and meditating.
Right.
Breath work is a practice of conscious awareness throughout the day. And
I love
really
that.
bringing nasal breathing in, learning how to slow the breath down. Because if we are just going with the flow is stress.
Right.
The flow is stress in this world.
Right.
So if we go with the flow, it's going to just lead to more disordered breathing, more stressful breathing, more breath than we actually need to take.
Right.
So everything else needs to be countering that, learning to slow down, nasal breathe. And so
no,
a lot goes into it, but it's simple.
I already knew you were going to the breath, and I was like, good, this is where this needs to go, because it is one of those things.
I could have said a glass of wine.
Yeah.
Or some Haagen-Dazs, because a lot of people will gravitate towards that.
That's true. Very true.
And I think that is just something real quick to highlight.
Yeah, no, go for it.
At the end of the day, we're all looking to soothe ourselves. We're all looking for some way to do that. And if we don't realize that we have that power within, it's always going to be an external thing. It's going to be coffee in the morning to stimulate ourselves. It's going to be maybe a poor choice of a lunch, pastry for no reason in the middle of the day, to try to give us a little bit more stimulation and energy. And it's going to be a glass of wine, a few beers that you probably don't need, and some ice cream as a self-soothing mechanism to downregulate. Yeah. So if you don't get control of it, it's going to control you.
Yeah. Dang. Okay. So let's see. I got a couple points I wanted to touch on. These are great. First off, with the breath, there's so much with it, right? Where it's like, even right now, like, I feel like you gave a very concise and good, informative, like, talk on what the breath is. And that is one of the hardest things to do, because when people ask, like, well, why is breath so important? One of the things I always say is, I'm like, okay, first off, like you mentioned, it's autonomic nervous system function, meaning these are typically things that are not in your conscious control. We're talking about, your digestion. We're talking about your heart rate. We're talking about all these different things that your body will do on its own without your conscious thought. And breath is one of those, but you can actually tap in and control it, which is crazy. And then through controlling your breath, you can control other autonomic nervous systems as well, the functions, right? So that's a trip. And honestly, it is. It's one of the best ways to bring consciousness into the moment and breathe through an issue, get control of your emotions, and react from a place of clarity as opposed to emotion, right? And then, the other point I wanted to jump on was with the whole wine and food. That's a whole topic I have yet to touch on, which is, as kids, when you are given a treat for doing something good, which I know I was, and I know many other people were, is like, oh, you won your soccer game. Cool. We're going to take you out here, or we're going to buy you that ice cream or whatever. And it becomes this, like, you kind of relate doing a good job or having a hard day of work, but you put in the work. Well, dude, you deserve something. And you know what that something is? It's going to be some kind of a comfort food. It's going to be alcohol or something like that, where It's a thing I've been seeing here recently where parents are starting to lessen on rewarding children with food for doing something well when it's just something that you probably should be doing. And maybe the reward could be a little bit more free time doing something else or whatever, but breaking that habit is, I think, crucial, and once again, through breath is how you can tap in and allow that, craving and desire for a comforting food or something to pass, is to actually tap in your breath and just say, okay, do I really need this right now? Or can I just kind of find something else or tap into my breath and just allow that to bring me down,
For sure. I mean, there's so many different opportunities to tie things to the breath that are going to ultimately really benefit you, So, again, rest and digest. There's a reason why it's rest and digest. Your body needs to be in a kind of a parasympathetic state to actually digest food the way that it needs to. So, what's the quickest way to do that? And again, these are things that I know that I don't necessarily practice, but that I could recommend as maybe this is an opportunity for you to integrate some of this. Is just, take some of these breaths prior to eating. Right. So if you're having gastrointestinal issues and you just don't seem to be digesting your food, there's a very good chance, again, we're living constant sympathetic state, running around from this, we're eating standing up, we're eating driving.
Yep.
You think your body is in any kind of position to digest that food? Probably not. So maybe that's your opportunity to slip in a little bit of breath work and use it for your real world. Just slide that dial into the parasympathetic state. And it's never this all or nothing thing. The nervous system isn't either all sympathetic or all parasympathetic.
Right.
It's a dial that is constantly going back and forth. Literally with every inhale and exhale, it's going every inhale a little more sympathetic, every exhale a little bit more parasympathetic. It is literally a dial that is constantly going back and forth every breath. And that's why you can adjust it or you can slide it so quickly, with some conscious breathing. So, don't think that, and it's so quick for us to devalue this because it's running in the background constantly. It's, it's always there, but it can be better, and it doesn't take that much effort to do it,
I think that's so critical right there. Just that whole statement, and having gone through a lot of gut issues myself, that was something that really resonated with me, was making sure that when you're eating and digesting, you're in a calm state, because you really should be, and looking back on it now and thinking about all the times that I wasn't in a resting state, while I was eating food, and then getting upset stomach and, oh, why, but that's amazing. Real quickly, I also wanted to talk a little bit about, if you're watching a video on this, we are sipping on this good little kava here, which is probably also a great way to de-stress, right?
It is.
Do you want to jump in a little bit on what kava is and why it is that you are, serving it here and highlighting it more so than, for example, alcohol or some other kind of relaxer?
Yeah, I mean, I'm big on alternatives for people, and again, trying to give people a way to make these things sustainable for themselves. So, kava is a great alcohol alternative, I guess,
for sure.
But it's also just a great way to de-stress, like you mentioned. You know? So it interacts with your GABA receptors, so you're going to kind of feel some stress leaving the body when you drink this. You get this little feeling of euphoria and connection, and it's pretty amazing. You do have an immediate response to it too, which is why I think it's so beneficial as an alternative to alcohol, because it is going to, again, we lean on things to help us in certain situations. That's why alcohol is, so popular, rather than people getting deep into the reason why they have social anxiety or they can't go and be confident when they go out into public. Rather than digging into that, we take a couple of shots or we put back a few beers.
Right.
So
get the liquid courage.
I get that, we're not all willing or ready to do that work.
Right.
So, something that allows you to open up, like kava is going to help serve that purpose, allow you to be a little bit more social. It does really help with easing anxiety as well. So, again, presenting these as options and alternatives, I would still advocate for doing the deeper work and figuring out why
sure.
it is that you have that insecurity and doing that. So
Mhm.
you don't have to rely on it, really anything external, but might as well be on that path and lean on an alternative that's not going to have you making the poor choices that alcohol will,
Yeah.
while still wreaking havoc on your gut health and your
Yep.
sleep. And for
Everything.
me, everything needs to be about this conversation
Mhm.
of recovery. And I chose to give up drinking. I think I'm coming up on 4 years.
Wow.
And it was just one of those things where it's like, when you know better, you do better.
Mm.
It was with no intention of being like straight edge. Like, I'm not that guy.
Okay.
It was more about literally alcohol serving no real purpose outside of me being able to have this very momentarily like fun time, which
Right.
the potential of turning into a not fun time was real. So it's
Right.
like, even that upside wasn't that great in
Mhm.
comparison to the downside. And I wanted to make room for other alternatives that could alter my mind in a way that there was a lot more upside, a lot more growth potential.
Right.
So whether it was like psilocybin or even cannabis, and kind of
Mhm.
having a different relationship with that and using those as my mind altering substances, I just saw so much more potential benefit on that.
Yeah.
And where, if you're being like really honest with yourself and better, like, how is alcohol really helping you outside
Right.
of like giving you a little social lubricant?
Right.
All right, cool. What if I gave you this other social lubricant
Right.
that didn't have you cheating on your wife,
Right.
or
Yeah.
didn't have you seeking out the attention
Right. Right.
or driving drunk?
Yeah.
And I'm not on this pedestal trying to.
No. Yeah.
I'm just really trying to do my job here.
Yeah.
Where it's like, there's alternatives.
Yeah.
That are going to be in alignment with this. So,
Yeah.
I have, I will call out, some health and wellness. Just like, if you're in the health and wellness space, like,
Mhm.
get clear on, why is it that you're seeking out alcohol?
Yeah.
More importantly, if you're a trainer and a coach and you're trying to build rapport with your clientele that you're trying to help on this path,
Mhm.
why is it that you're building rapport with a night out at the bar?
Yeah.
It's because it's the only option you have
Right.
to be
Right.
social.
Mhm.
But it shouldn't have to be that way. And I'm trying to create a space here at Lifted Botanical Bar, which is connected to Space Bar,
Mhm.
to bring that social wellness to play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're all out here connecting, having a good time, having conversations, and we can do it in a more responsible way that is more in alignment. And granted, it's all balance is important.
Right.
People can have drinks and not ruin their life over it.
Right.
I was able to get away with drinking without ruining my life.
Right.
But does it really make? Does it really make sense?
Right.
So, I mean, enjoy your drinks. Like, do it responsibly. Do your thing. But
Right.
just, I'm big on asking questions and trying to get at the root. Of things. No pun intended, because kava is a root.
Yeah.
From the South Pacific. Friggin' doesn't taste all that great.
Right. Right.
But it is just really cool.
Little mouth numbing feel to
A
it.
little mouth numbing.
Yeah.
And it is something that you can go a little deep on, So
Mhm.
it's similar with cannabis, how there's different strains and like, some have higher levels of THC, some have higher level of CBD. Kava has different strains as well. And different farms can produce different kava that have different makeups of kava lactones, which is the active compound. So some can be a little bit more euphoric and more social. Some can be more relaxing and sedative. So it is something that you can really go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And even just like different flavor profiles. This one that we're drinking is Mellow from Vanuatu. And, you notice a little bit of more of a peppier, like a pepper on the back end, a little bit more, like it hits
For
you a little
sure.
bit, right?
I get it in my nose a little bit, almost like the pepper flavor or scent, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you'll notice that, and some are more bitter, and then there's a little bit rarer variety that we have from Samoa, which doesn't actually produce too much kava, but so that's kind of why it's a little more rare. But the Samoan kava that is just like really smooth and very euphoric and way more palatable, I guess. So it's really cool. If you haven't experienced it, of course, I would recommend coming and seeing us.
Yeah.
But there are a few products that are coming out there. Like we talked about earlier, the Live Free product that I've seen a lot, right? Which is mixed with some kratom. And I would just be a little cautious with some of those. You don't know the dosages. Again, these are plants, and these are what I consider plant medicine. This
Right.
is a low key psychoactive. It's
Right.
interacting with your neuroreceptors, and you're feeling a type of way. So whenever that's the case, I err on the side of tradition and what's been used for thousands of years, and that's why we make it traditionally here. In addition to some other mixed drinks that are a little bit more palatable, but there are a lot of products that are now starting to hit the market, and like anything else, it falls within the category of supplemental, and therefore very little. Was it policing within that field, right? So what you're getting could be this very highly concentrated version of something that the body isn't fully designed to integrate in the way that it could or should.
Right.
So.
No, for sure. Yeah, like with kava in general, it's if you are wanting to experience kava and you're not in the Southern California region, you can always obviously look around. But if you are in Southern California, like I think this is one of the best places to get kava because, of course, you can go find those, pre-made drinks from the store or whatever. But there's something different about having someone who actually knows the doses that they're putting in there, like the quantity and what the effects are going to be, and someone to even give you some information in real time on what it's doing. And then also, I mean, just the whole atmosphere of being here as well is a beautiful place to try kava. So I really enjoy that. And, it's so true. Like with alcohol, when it comes to clients, if they drink alcohol, fine. It's okay. If you want to drink alcohol, like that's a decision you can make. But I always say, like, please make that alcohol worth the time. So if you are going to be drinking, please drink with other people. Drink in a good setting where it's like, it's worth the recovery day following and all that, like make sure you're doing it in a social setting with some boundaries around it. And at least maybe you're growing your friend group or something like that, to put some benefit to it. Because as far as the health perspective goes, there's nothing that it's really doing,
but we reach to kind of try to justify these things. So like even in, blue zones, as we know, like there's say a pretty good consumption of wine. Right. So we want to then say, oh, well, look at wine plays a role in these level of like centurions, right? Like all these people. But I think, if you dig a little deeper, it's less about the consumption of that wine and more of the social aspect and when you're drinking that wine, right? So
100%.
So again, if you can remove that, but still have the social thing. So I get it. So like you need to look at all these things. So it's the only way you're going to be able to go and have social connection is over a glass of wine. 100% go have that glass of wine.
Right.
I just don't believe that that's the only way, right? So, our job as health coaches is to push you a little bit in reframing some of the ways that you think about things.
Absolutely.
Right? Go smoke a blunt with your boys and go connect that way. And I mean, even with that, there's could be some downside,
right?
But I think less downside. So some of these things, you just look at again, just engage with your process. Engage with it.
You also mentioned that kava binds to GABA receptors. Would you mind going a little bit further on GABA? Actually, even just my knowledge on GABA is slightly limited. I've heard that you can keep some GABA like supplement at your bedside if you tend to wake up middle of the night and have trouble getting back to sleep. I've heard that it can help with getting back into sleep. There's other possible reasons why you're waking up at that time. And I've heard things like eating a little bit of honey or MCT oil before bedtime can help you sleep through the night as well, due to something with the digestive process with the liver or something. But if you wouldn't mind diving in a little bit on GABA and kind of what that's all about.
If you're, you can take exogenous GABA. So like increased GABA is going to help just you relax a little bit. So it's going to also like help with relieving tension within the muscle. So by activating the GABA receptor, you're going to have a little bit more GABA throughout your system, right? So kava uniquely kind of has this like reverse tolerance thing. So you want to drink more on the front end to kind of make sure you get it up in that GABA receptor, right? So then once you do that, you have this increased GABA and you can just drink a little bit less of it. So whether you're taking a pill that has GABA to kind of help you relax, or you're doing something to promote more GABA within yourself, that's kind of gonna help there. And then as far as like having some say carbohydrate or honey. It's more, I think, rather than just the honey, I think it's just carbohydrate in general
Right.
at night sometimes is going to help, again, slide you into the parasympathetic state,
Right.
and rest and relax. And like, there's so many different ways to kind of go about it. And I think it's very important to just start engaging with your own process and recognizing, how you feel, because, as somebody will say, like having some rice at dinner and to get that carbohydrate in, or even say having, some ice cream before bed, that might help some people fall asleep and stay asleep.
Right.
Others will sleep better, without food prior, like 3 hours.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, I'm always very careful to say that any one thing is ever going to work, because we're all very uniquely different.
Yep.
And I get that's a very hard thing to sell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like
it is.
But it's a process.
But it's also the truth. It's like someone comes up to you and asks, "Oh, hey, what's the best diet you recommend?" Or, what's the best, it's like, or best workouts or what. And it's like, well, what are your goals and what's your body type, and all these different things come into play. And that's why in health coaching, like you and I do, it's very much assessing the person and an individual unique program for that person, for their specified goals and their specified body or body type they're wishing to obtain, and all that. So for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to put together like almost like a waiver or a consent form, where it's like, when you come with these things, you want these tactics, that you're consenting to, like, for me to give that to you.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I feel better morally than just giving you some friggin' tactics that are going to, like, get that job done, even though I know, 30 days or 60 days from now, you're going to fall off.
Right. Right.
Because, I never want to, like, try to turn people away, or I don't want to force my own thought process to it. So, like, I'm trying to get right with myself with how to engage that and give people what they want while still ultimately feeling good about what I'm offering and sleeping at night, because that'll keep you awake at night too.
Yeah, for sure.
Out of alignment and trying to, grow your business, around things that you don't fully believe.
Yeah. For sure.
That will work on a short-term basis, but ultimately leave your client feeling worse.
Yeah.
So it's a tough conversation to have.
It is.
It's not the sexy one.
Yeah. But it's necessary, I guess. But and then a little bit of what I wanted to ask you about is just as far as kind of like recovery goes. So I know you were kind of mentioning that, we place a lot of importance on kind of like working out and just like hammer, go after it. But like what specifically here with the recovery is the goal in terms of like, why are we hopping in these ice baths? Why are we going in the sauna, doing the red light therapy, the float tanks? Is it purely the recovery, or is it also, like I heard you mention a little bit, creating some space for yourself to respond in, right? And doing those uncomfortable things to find comfort and control, because, it's like they say, how you do anything is how you do everything. Right. And so, I don't know if you want to kind of dive in on that.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, a couple of things. I mean, for one thing, and again, back to this coach in my head, we're doing this recovery stuff so we can do more work, so we can be more successful, so I can work more productively, so I can show up as even a better partner, so I'm anchoring my mind to that, because that's what I need. I want, and again, I think most of us in this country we're so far gone on that narrative that even the recovery needs to be tied to productivity. Like you're taking one step back so you can take 2 steps forward,
right,
and do more work.
Right.
So, so that's I think important, at least the way that we offer it. Like, this is a form of self-care, and, we're trying to reframe that again in the way that I just talked about it, and less of, champagne and nails, that's not how we're spending it. We're doing this consciously so that we can do more work.
Right.
And then also with recovery, so much of it has to do with our nervous system, whether we're learning to self-regulate it through breath, or we're using some of these things. Because again, some of these things are stressors, but if we're doing this consciously, say with breath and with this other intention, we can learn how to manage stress better. And even I'm just careful to use that language around managing stress, because again, stress has been um, positioned as some bad thing.
Right.
Stress is everything.
Right.
Without stress, we don't exist.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that needs to be reframed for most people is your relationship to stress. If you think it's a bad thing, you're always going to be running away from it or trying to soothe yourself by any means possible to not either deal with stress or just try to avoid it.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't believe in that.
No.
I know stress is inevitable. It's like I mentioned, everything. So we can either go into things with this idea of avoiding it and then dealing with post-traumatic stress disorders. And, granted, that is a real thing. So I'm not trying to downplay that. But one thing I think about is like this stressful environment either can turn into trauma for me because I wasn't engaged with that stress.
Right.
Or I can turn it into like post-growth disorder, right? Because stress does lead to growth.
Right.
The only way to grow, to get stronger, is by stressing. So it's trying to figure out and understand that, and then use these things to build a bigger bucket,
right?
So that you can build more capacity for stress,
right?
Whether that's through just like cold exposure,
right?
And letting your body kind of adapt to that. That's really, I think, important to think about, and there's studies that support that just the reframing of how you view stress is really impactful for how your actions and your behaviors behind it.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of our overall approach to it. It's not going anywhere.
Right.
Stress is everywhere, so you just got to redefine, or at least embrace that idea.
Right.
Like, I don't understand how it's not embraced, I guess, at this point.
Yeah. Well, also, I think what's so important about stress, and now I know people are like, well, you told me to de-stress, and now you're saying to do stress. And the thing is not all stress is bad. Like, obviously, stress is a reminder for you to get things done or to do, whatever, it is that the stress is coming from. It's a response to something happening in your outer world or inner world. And I think realistically, like you said, like how we look at stress and understand how to adapt to it and manage it, like you said, or process it in a way is super critical, because like you said, the body wants to just be in this state of, like where everything's just perfect. It's comfortable, like everything's perfect. But realistically, if you don't have any stress, then your body is going to become soft to a degree, mentally, physically, whatever. And you need the stress to allow you to overcome something and become more resilient in a way, but the problem is like when you have this constant stress from day-to-day stuff like traffic and your boss and blah, 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 and drinking 10 cups of coffee, that's spiking your cortisol and all this, it's like, that's not the proper way, or the proper going home and having a glass of wine is not necessarily the proper way of dealing with that stress. It's getting real with yourself. Right.
Yeah, and that's exactly where the problem with stress lies. It's chronic stress. Chronic stress is the problem.
Right.
So it's not necessarily the state. It's more of how you got there.
Yeah.
Right. And like, inducing stress is a completely different experience than it just running in the background.
Yeah.
Like completely different.
Right.
So it's like a lot of the Wim Hof breathing method is a stressful breathing method.
Right.
But it's just it's a different thing.
Right.
When you're doing that, when you're inducing and activating your nervous system, that's where you get a lot of like anti-inflammatory markers. Your immune system can get boosted and you're getting all of these benefits.
Right.
But that is stress. So once you start understanding what stress really is, you understand that it's not the state of stress that matters.
Right.
It's how you got there.
Yeah.
And it's all about empowering people and understanding that, you can control this thing. And how do we control it? Through the breath.
Right. Yeah. Back to the breath.
So again, and even like you can think that some other action or some other activity is what's helping you manage stress or deal with stress, but it's not. It can. So what that could do could change the way you're breathing, And then the way you're breathing then can kind of, again, down regulates you. So it's still going to be the breath.
Right.
So might as well just lead with that.
Yeah.
Save yourself some time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all about, like, I think when people really embrace that it's inevitable, you're gonna approach it in a different way. Some people want to take charge of that, and for me, like, I know there's gonna be some real challenging moments in my life. Not that I'm seeking them out, I just know that's how it works. There's gonna be deaths that are really close to me.
Right.
Every single one of us is gonna pass away. Right. So it's just a matter of time. I don't know if I'm gonna go first or the woman I love that is gonna go first.
Right.
But it's going to happen. So I want to be able to somewhat prepare. I don't, like, we need to move on.
Right.
We need to keep pushing on, and the only way to do that is by regulating our nervous systems and not just in the act of doing that, but we know that if we can do that, we're going to think more logically.
Right.
We're going to be able to prepare more. We're going to be able to keep pushing on.
Yeah.
We're going to be able to find other things in life that that's worth living for.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, I tie it to as deep as that.
Yeah.
And looking back when I'm an old man and the life that I led, if I want to be able to share, like, amazing stories for, hopefully grandchildren and people around me, and the only way I'm going to really capture amazing stories is by doing amazing shit. And you can't do amazing shit if you're constantly worried in this state of anxiety and not able to get through those moments and show up.
Yeah.
You got to get out there to capture those stories, whether it's like you like to go out there and spearfish or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you got to be able to suppress the fear of going into the dark water to have the story of the fish you caught in the dark water.
Yeah. If
not, your story is boring as hell.
Yeah.
And ain't no one gonna be gathering around my deathbed listening to my boring ass stories.
So that's honestly pretty true, though. Yeah, I mean, that's so valuable, though, is just understanding that, like, stress management is at the core of everything, and realizing that, your brain doesn't understand the difference between a tiger chasing you and traffic. Like, it's all the same response. It's all stress at the end of the day. But the only difference is that we tend to live in this heightened state of stress, like you said. And then the problem with that is if you're never down regulating and coming to a parasympathetic state, well, being in the sympathetic state, being constantly stressed starts to become your normal, starts to become like the hormesis, right? Yeah. And it's just, I think, bringing the attention to stress management and understanding there's going to be stressful situations, but through breath and through activating the parasympathetic state, I am able to better process it and grow from it and learn from it, and not fear stress. Understand that it's a part of life. It's there. It plays a purpose, it has a purpose. Like, it wouldn't be there if it wasn't necessary. But understanding that, this developed probably a super long time ago when we were dealing with different things as human beings, because literally today compared to 100 years ago is very different. And then compared to 1,000 years ago is extremely different, and learning that, we got to adapt to the times.
Yeah, which is even why it's more important to actually have a practice.
Yes.
And engage this. And there's real immediate benefits for it. I coach a lot of people through ice baths, and everybody, deals with it a little different. I get to see, like, a window into human nature and a window into a lot of people's backgrounds without even having them to talk about it. Like, I get to see, like, what they've used in the past to soothe themselves. Right.
That's
and then
crazy.
we work through it, because people will respond pretty differently within the ice. But one thing that I and again, it's like cryotherapy and all these things, the idea is there, but the intentionality is not there. And that's why, we do cold baths and we do ice baths, because it really exposes these very deeply rooted things.
Yeah. I didn't even think of that. That's crazy.
And, when, you'll get some anxiety when you get into, say, cryo, but again, like, typically the businesses that are offering that, they're not very intentional with it. It's more of like, hey, look at this cool smoke that's coming out. Like, throw these mittens on. Let's take a photo for Instagram.
Right.
That's cool, but, like, what if we can really solve your anxiety? And really help you show up better, So whenever we do jump into the ice, like, I want people to start becoming more aware of these, like, feelings of anxiety. Um, Again, back to our ice baths and our cold immersion. We have bigger goals and bigger intentions. So we want people to know that you can literally solve the anxieties that you're living with day to day by doing some of these stressors.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing that we do that I try to bring awareness to is when somebody's getting into the ice bath is, where are you feeling that? What's that feel like for you? Are your palms sweaty? Do you feel butterflies? Is your heart rate racing? These are all indicators that something is going on, that an external stressor is coming, right?
Right.
And again, the things with, say, anxiety is that it's not necessarily something that is physically around you that might worry you. So now we know that just projecting out into the future of something that you might have to do, or you're imagining something that might not go well, if you are then able to consciously bring yourself back to your feelings, you might notice those same feelings of palm sweating, heart racing, breath short into the chest. And like you said, the body doesn't really know the difference between, a lion chasing us or, us thinking about, us a job interview that we have. The
Right.
body doesn't know. It manifests the same way. So if we
Right.
can start bringing awareness to these feelings, getting ahead of those and be like, oh, here's a perfect example. I know these feelings. Rather than going down the rabbit hole, I'm going to use this tool that I learned at Spacebar or wherever to downregulate and breathe.
Yeah.
Right. So the ice is just the perfect place to test that, because it doesn't get much more stressful than knowing you're going to get into 33-degree water.
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding.
So this is how we test this. This is how we breathe through this. This is how we build confidence that those feelings were nothing more than just feelings in the moment.
Right.
And that you leaned into discomfort. You still got into that ice bath and you were able to do that.
Right.
And through reps of that, you can start rewiring your relationship to those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself this tool to change the way that that experience is for you,
Right.
using the breath.
Right.
And through time, you're going to be able to completely get through this feeling of social anxiety.
Yeah.
Because you're telling your body that I've felt these things before and I got through it.
Right.
And it just, the whole mindset then goes in that direction.
Yeah.
And you start looking for areas in your life that you can lean into discomfort and get through it. Right. So even from that aspect, that's a whole nother way to go about it. You build a little confidence here and then you kind of get high off of this growth and of this new confidence. Right. So now if going out and talking to, a girl gives you anxiety and you don't do it, now you have a whole nother relationship with stress and anxiety. And that feeling of stress, of your heart racing, of your palms sweating, is now not a sign to retreat. It's a sign to move forward and go talk to that chick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's it. Friggin' everything, dude.
That's super interesting to think about though, because I never really thought about it in terms of like how you would show your anxiety or how you deal with the stressor, by hopping in the ice bath, which is so true because you do. And also just kind of like thinking about it now, I'm like, yeah, it's essentially like you would go practice basketball for your game of basketball, right? You would also like want to practice of how to manage stress and give yourself some tools in your tool belt of how to address stress when it comes along in the real world. So you're kind of doing a simulated practice of stress, which obviously an ice bath has way more benefits to it, for your body and everything. But I mean, yeah, that's incredible for teaching yourself that you have these different tools, and it's a practice of dealing with stress.
Yeah. I mean, as we talked about, like, how do you even market some of this stuff? We talked about this like off mic, and at the end of the day, like, there's people, like, I guess that's a form of marketing where it's like, hey, like, we could solve these problems for you. This is what you'll be experiencing after, like, less anxiety. You're going to be able to be more confident, all of this stuff. But at the end of the day, like, who our audience is, like, who's really going to get something out of this. Of course, those people will get stuff out of it. But it's more about the mindset. If you're of the mindset that you embrace a growth mindset, that you lean into discomfort, like, this is what you're training. The person who isn't going to get this is the person who doesn't think that is just constantly seeking comfort. That comfort is what they think that they control everything.
Right.
They think they control their future.
Right.
They think that they're always going to be able to reach to the heater when they get in their car.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That is the mindset. Life is just going to get better and better and better just for the sake of being. That's not how it works.
No.
That's not how it works. And, like the current situation, and, not to, like, this isn't, making anything light of, there's literally countries at war right now.
Right.
A few weeks ago, people were probably in this pattern of seeking comfort.
Yeah.
You don't think this can happen to you.
Right.
Right. Again, you're getting into your car, you're turning on the heater.
Right.
Or you're going home and you're sleeping in a comfortable bed.
Right.
In a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks. There's people that were sleeping comfortably in their bed that are now sleeping in tunnels.
Right.
Right. And it's like, it is an option.
Right.
Is it a very highly probability that here in the US that we're going to experience that? Probably not.
Right.
Is it a chance? Hell yeah, it's a chance.
Right.
At some capacity, it is a chance. So again, I've been so ingrained in finding my whys and finding those deeper things that's where I go. I'm not looking at worst case scenario for the sake of like living in worst case scenario. I just know the reality of what it's going to be.
Right.
And as somebody who's a bit of a risk taker who leans into starting businesses and trying to make all this happen, the odds are against me.
Right.
So I better get right with failing. I better get right with, things not going my way.
Right.
And what am I going to do? Stomp my feet and complain?
Right.
No.
Right.
You regulate, you get back on, you shift your mindset, and you get back after it. So it's not just an act of getting cold and getting warm.
No, so deeper.
Exactly.
So much deeper.
And things get just really cool when you can start, connecting these dots.
Yeah. Yeah. Damn. Jake, I already know I could talk to you. Well, I mean, we already do. We talk for hours on end, but for the sake of the podcast, let's start kind of bringing this to a wind down. So for one, if there's any closing statements you got that you want to leave people with, as well as I want you to explain a little bit of the space bar and the space you have here and what your offerings are, as well as any other offerings that you have going on and how people can reach out and connect to you, because you're a freaking amazing person. And I really value your time and just you sitting here with me and the knowledge that you are literally giving to all these listeners. So I appreciate you, and go ahead, and if you would like to share on those three.
Yeah, man, I'll try to avoid some of the closing statements, because most of my closing statements are opening statements for others that should like go down a whole path.
Yeah.
Right. And like,
that'll be the next episode.
So we'll focus on, Spacebar. So again, Spacebar Wellness, we do contrast therapy. So that's ice baths and saunas and red light therapy, flotation therapy, which is also known as sensory deprivation. We do some personal training here, body work, cupping, scraping. We also have a Navajo medicine woman that works with us as well. So
That's
we have
beautiful.
some of those other conversations around plant medicine and how we can use those again to try to find growth and unpack some of the trauma or some of the things that are preventing us from having the outlook that a lot of what we talked about today.
Right.
So in addition, we also have Lifted Botanical Bar, which is our kava bar up front, which also is a full coffee shop. We do a lot of functional mushroom drinks there as well, and have the kava bar. So highly recommend, making a trip out to Pasadena and coming to visit us, and or just reaching out personally. I love to have these conversations. Anything I can do to support, Evan, and try to drive these ideas home, the more success I think that we're ultimately going to have. And, we're doing our best, and we try to speak the truth.
Mm-hmm.
We're not trying to sell you any gimmicky products.
Right.
Our goal ultimately is to help you find a mindset shift.
Yes.
And find what works for you. That's the only way it's sustainable, at the end of the day. So if you are local in LA and want to come visit us in Pasadena, 50% off your first service. Would love for that first service to be the ice bath, as we talked about the importance of that. I'll make sure that I'm around to guide you through it and coach you through it. That's another big aspect of what we do here. And it's been tough over the past couple of years. We opened up just before the pandemic. So our full operation has only been during this pandemic. And we built this place to be a little bit more social, to have shared connection over ice bath, because we knew that by doing so and you coming in a small group, you're going to be more connected to this experience. You literally have a near death experience as far as your body is concerned. And therefore, doing that with other people is a great way to connect instantaneously, right? So
Yep.
we're trying to bring that back. I'll be here to coach you through it again, because having support and having somebody to be on your shoulder, giving you a little bit more confidence, is the path for you to find your own confidence in doing that, because we don't want you to lean on me or lean on Evan. At the end of the day, we're here to support you, but nobody's coming to save you. You need to learn these tools to apply to yourself. And we do that. We do that with every ice bath. I'll sit there with you and I'll guide you through it. But then I ask you to do the second dip on your own.
Yep.
And just bring awareness to the difference there. Because at the end of the day, man, like I said, you're on your own.
Yep.
You're on your own to figure this out, man. But while we're here, lean on us.
Yeah.
So.
Real quickly, just to jump in, I obviously have been to the Space Bar multiple times, and it's a beautiful, like, state of the art place, just super beautiful setup, amazing atmosphere. Jacob has gone to, extreme lengths to really provide that space for all of us. So also on that note, 50% off is a ridiculous deal. And on top of already very reasonable prices, especially for the LA area. So if you are anywhere even near Pasadena, highly, highly, highly recommend to come here and just give them a check out. I mean, 50% off your first visit. I mean, you can't really beat that. And I promise you're going to love it. Jacob, he walked me through my first ice bath, and needless to say, it definitely helped, even though I didn't think I needed it at the time. Once you get in that frigid water, it's nice to have a calm, reassuring voice that's just bringing you back to reality. So highly recommend. I mean, Jake's awesome, and just getting in there and having him in your corner is really nice. So absolutely, absolutely. Come make a visit. Come check this space out. And then also, Jake, where is the best place for people to connect with you and reach out to you, and any other future offerings that you have going on or anything in this time?
Yeah, you can find me personally on Instagram at cub_Saldana. That's Saldana. Would love for you to follow along at Spacebar Wellness, all one word on Instagram, and then Lifted Botanical Bar as well, all one word. An offering that should be available here really soon is going to be a 90-day challenge that we're putting together.
Yeah.
So maybe you guys have heard of the 75 Hard Challenge, very popular challenge out there. And it's a great one. A lot of people are getting great results and they're embracing new habits, but it's just not fully in alignment with some of the things that we value. As I mentioned, we value prioritizing recovery. And empowering people to not give up when they make a mistake, that this is a bit of a marathon. So embracing that and knowing that you can get back on and continue those habits tomorrow, even if you fall off today. So putting together 10 habits around this idea of breath, adaptation, and recovery to help you integrate this lifestyle and seeing what the benefits of balance can bring to you. So we'll be launching that on an app here soon. And yeah, just something to follow along with, have some accountability. There'll be a community page, and I'll probably hop in that page and drop some little nuggets from time to time, but be a great way to connect with me and stay engaged. But more importantly, make some changes in your life,
Yeah. No, absolutely. Obviously, I'll link all of the Lifted Botanical Space Bar and your Instagram in the show notes and any other websites. But in general, like, you guys definitely should be reaching out to Jake, following along on Lifted Botanicals and Space Bar and with Jake, because realistically, this guy he's a go-getter, and it seems like every week I come and talk to him, he's got something new going on, some new avenue that he's going down. So he's just always doing super cool stuff, and he's staying on the cutting edge of everything. So he expands my knowledge personally as a health coach as well. So following him is kind of a no-brainer. If you're already following me, he's going to add a lot of value to your content and your just your day-to-day scrolling, I would say.
Well, I appreciate all the kind words, and I don't want to get it twisted. Like, we're not coming at these things with like huge bankrolls,
Right,
but
right.
like, this is a great facility, but we bootstrap this.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, we
Mhm.
go all in, and I just want people to know that, you know, eliminate those excuses. If you want it bad enough and you want to create something for your community, you can do that, man.
I love
You
that.
know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
can do it, and we can do it. We can do it together.
Right. Yeah.
Honestly. So yeah, man, that's it from me, man. Thank you.
Awesome. Hey, Jake, thank you so much, brother.
Of course, brother.
Great, pleasure to have you on. And to just end off the show, you guys already know, do everything with good intentions, connect to your elements, and happy Wellness Wednesday. Be sure to tune in for next Wednesday. Leave a review if you guys don't mind. Takes just a little bit of time on the Apple podcast. And reach out to us, reach out to both of us, make a visit to Space Bar, and just stay in touch with all of us. We love hearing from you guys and seeing, what your guys' interests are and everything. So thank you very much, and be sure to tune into the next episode, and we'll see you there. Peace.
Yeah.